Well, hello everyone and welcome to the Econobox Garage. This week I'm going to start off with unboxing a large order of parts that I just received. Once that's done, I'm going to paint the new engine and then get on to cleaning up and transferring some parts to the ribcase gearbox. So thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoy this week's video. Well, I got a nice big box of parts today from Classic Motorworks in Manitoba. They're a Moss dealer. So let's see what's arrived. I have cheated a little bit. I've already cut all the tape. It makes it a lot easier. This is a box of all kinds of little bits and pieces here. Steering column seal, some O-rings, more grommets, and a few things for the rear lights, more stuff for lights. I believe those are the windshield screws. Those are for the windshield, I know that for sure. More washers, banjo bolts, nuts, more gaskets, more grommets, transmission seal. What else? A couple more grommets and seals. Front brake lines, a couple of lock washers, and the pads for the windshield pillar. So that's the first little box. What have we here? Shifter boot. And in here, these are lenses for the front and rear lights. That's for the clear ones for the front. Another clear one. And a red one. And the red one. So they've got two for the back, two for the front. These are the holders for the lights. There's 4 of them in there. Tie rod boot. This is the seal and piston kit for the brake calipers. Brake pads for the front. And this is the seal for the windscreen and the windshield to body seal. And last but not least, a can of the dark green Sprite paint. If you recall in last week's video, I was in receipt of my new engine. And as you can see, it needs a coat of paint. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to remove the flywheel so I can get the engine mounted on an engine stand and make it a lot easier to work with. So I've taken off the flywheel and the back plate so I can get the engine mount bracket bolted up to the back of the block. And now all I have to do is get that lifted up onto the engine stand. So now that I have the engine mounted back on the stand, I'm going to take some of the peripherals off to make it easier to paint. So I'll take the valve cover off, I'll take the distributor out, and then I will remove the oil filter paraphernalia. So that's going to change anyway because I have the kit to switch this over to a spin-on filter rather than the canister. When masking these spots on the engine block, I make sure that the surface is clean so that the tape will stick. I then place the tape overlapping the edges of the spot I want to mask off. Once that's in place, I rub the edges with my finger first and then with the shaft of a small round screwdriver or pick. This cuts the tape along the edge of the casting, allowing me to peel off the excess tape and leave a good sharp edge. So there we have the masking pretty much done. I've got the valve train all covered up. The mating surfaces in here all covered up. I've got the intake and exhaust manifolds off, and got this all masked off. So all of the rest of this will get painted the Austin Healey green. I just noticed I got in one little area here. I'm going to pull these clamps out of here altogether, wrap some tape around this little hose, and then I'll put new clamps on that don't have the old blue paint on them. Next up, I'm just going to do some more cleaning. You can see some dirt and what have you on the oil pan. And once I've got the cleaning done, I can get to the paint. Well, there we have the engine all painted. I've already taken the spark plugs out that I had in there to stop paint from getting in the holes. So next up, I'm going to get all the masking tape off. So there we have all the masking tape stripped off the intake exhaust side, off the top of the cylinder head, just the main pulley mount on the water pump, and all the little spots around the other side of the motor. From here and here, where the distributor goes, oil filter goes. And then I had left spark plugs in so you can see where the seats were on those. So those are all free of paint. And as you can see, the head doesn't have the studs for the thermostat housing, so I will pull those studs off the old head that came on the original engine for the car, and I'll use those instead. So I also have to refinish the valve cover, but then I can start putting things back together. Oh, I just noticed one piece of masking I didn't take off, and that's for the engine number, which is right here. So I'll get that off before I do anything else. In an earlier video, I showed you that I had acquired this ribcase transmission to put in the Bugeye. Now the catch with this one is that it came from a left-hand drive Morris Minor, which has a mechanical clutch, which means that the clutch fork is on the left side of the transmission. On the Bugeye, it has a hydraulic activated clutch, and the slave cylinder mounts just under here on the outside, and the clutch fork comes in this way. So what that means is this clutch fork here won't work, nor will this cover plate here that's held in by these studs around the perimeter. One other thing that comes into play here is I'm not putting this behind my original 948 engine. It's going behind a later 1098, and as such it will need a different front cover and a different shift fork than what was on the smoothcase gearbox. So I have sourced those and they're on their way, but in the meantime I'm going to pull the shift fork off here so I can put the grommet or plug into this hole, and then I can also get the slave cylinder for the clutch transferred from the smoothcase to this one here. So here's the smoothcase gearbox that came out of the car that I had painted and basically all cleaned up. I've since learned that the transmissions weren't painted, and then since I did the work on the smoothcase, I was able to acquire a rib case, as I've already mentioned. So some of the things I'm going to need to transfer over from the original gearbox to the new one is the clutch slave cylinder. And you can see here I've got the remote bleeder kit that I got from Bugeye Guy. So I'll put a link to that in the description below. And so that's got to transfer over. And also the transmission mounts. Rather than painting the rib case, I've just given it a good clean. I did pull off the cover for the end of the starter and just gave that a fresh coat of paint, cleaned up the screws. And I will be replacing the seal on the end of the gearbox here. So there we have the transmission mount switched over from the smooth case to the rib case. I've left the bolts in their respective holes so I don't forget where they are for one and which holes they go in. So next up I'm going to switch over the slave cylinder and the remote bleeder screw. I have the clutch slave cylinder just bolted up in place, and at the other end of it, so I just zip tied the bracket for the remote bleeder screw. So that just keeps that in place. So now that that's done, I am going to replace the seal, and then this is the new moss part that I've got. So I'll just have to work this one off, slide that one on, and I believe there's just a couple of spots you can just see here where it gets hammered in to keep it in place. So this seal is installed very tight on the end of the transmission here. So what I've had to do is put a split in the side of it, and that may not be the right way, but that's the way that I'm doing it, and I think that'll pop right off now. And I'm just using a big socket to tap this down over the end of the made sure that the socket itself cleared the splines so that I don't damage those. So there we have the new seal put in place, and the little dimples put in a couple of spots around just to hold it into place. Another job checked off the list. So now the seal's replaced, the transmission mount is installed, and the slave cylinder is on. I am going to put the smooth case aside for now, and I'm going to take the clutch lever out of the box, and then I can put the plug in on this side. So this gearbox all cleaned up. Just put a coat of paint on the shifter plate here and on the starter cover. New dust cover here and down under here. And just a general cleanup. Transmission mount switched over from the smooth case. New seal on the back. I'm waiting for now is a replacement front cover and clutch fork to go with the hydraulic clutch. But that's all I have time for this episode. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to share it with your friends. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget about that little bell icon so you'll get notified when the next videos come out. My name is Ian. This is the Econobox Garage. We'll see you next time.